Hello, Samantha Vidanica here from Using Technology Better. Welcome to this video on using Google Forms, Sheets and Docs for peer feedback. Peer feedback is a great classroom strategy for encouraging student involvement in and responsibility for learning. It can also help students deepen their understanding of the subject matter, and it's a good way for them to practice giving constructive feedback to others, which is of course a key part of collaboration. Using a peer feedback process also means that each student gets an audience for their work that actually goes beyond the teacher. Now, managing the peer feedback process can be a little bit difficult, particularly with a large number of students. However, if you use Google Forms to collect the feedback, you can then use Google Sheets and the autoCrat add-on to automate the distribution of the feedback to each student. This is an easy way to speed up the process and ensures each student gets their feedback in a clear and well-structured format. So let's take a look at how to set it up. So the first thing is you need to have a Google form. So here's one I've set up. Now there's no right and wrong way to do this. This is just one way I've done it, and you possibly already have your own preferred peer feedback form questions. But in this case, there are a couple of things you want to make sure that you've got in there. So the first thing is the name of the student giving the feedback. So we'll call this the reviewer, and I've got that in the what is your name question. Then they need to select who they're actually giving feedback on. So you may have this as a free text field if you've got a lot of students. Because I only had a small amount, I actually did it as a drop-down box style question just so I could make sure that they selected correctly. Particularly if you've got younger students, this might be a good strategy as well. The next important one is the email address of the student that the work was from, so the student that's being reviewed. Now again, if you've got young students or who don't have emails, or that's a little bit difficult, you can leave this bit out and the teacher can then provide the document to the student themselves. But in this case, we're going to imagine that they do have email addresses and the students are able to pop that in, and then it's going to get the feedback's going to be emailed to them automatically. So what I have done here is just made a note to the person filling in the form to copy and paste an email address from a list. And for instance, I would pop in here a URL to a shared Google Doc or sheet, and the student could just find the person that they're reviewing and copy and paste the email address. And that just avoids having any problems with mistakes and stuff. The other thing I do is in here, I set this to short answer, and I come down to the little 3-dot button in the bottom right corner and pop on data validation. That then lets me select a type of validation. We've selected text, and you can select email address. So it at least makes sure that a valid email address is entered into this question. And then the last three ones, I've just gone with the best things, couple of suggestions, and any corrections. So you could pop whatever questions you want in there. So once the form's set up, we then need to have a template for where we want this feedback to go into. And this is in the form of a Google Doc. And this is what the student will see at the end. So the student that's being reviewed will get this. So up the top here, I've got a Google Doc, and you can see here I've set it up. Very simple, a heading and the 3 questions. Now you're probably wondering what these odd looking words with the little symbols are here. So these are what we call merge tags, and they're represented with the double-ended arrow. So this is how autoCrat knows where to put information in this template. So what it's basically going to do is take the responses to this form, insert them in this template, and create that template for every single student. So you'll see here name, so that would be the name of the student that's being reviewed. That would correspond to this question here, whose work are you giving feedback on? Now in this particular template, you actually don't have to match the merge fields here to the questions in here. You've just got to make them similar enough so that you can identify a match later on, but I usually keep them short and sharp just so that it's easy, and you can see that I've got name, reviewer, best improvements, corrections. So that will then add the right question from the Google form into each section of my document. So once we've got that template and we've got the form, the next step is to open up the spreadsheet that is attached to the form and run autoCrat. So we jump onto the responses tab, and then we click on the little create spreadsheet icon on the right here. It's going to prompt us to create a new spreadsheet, and we'll click create. So now that the spreadsheet's open, you'll see it's got no data in it at the moment. So we're going to set it up so that autoCrat runs whenever a form is submitted. So that will mean that as soon as a student gives peer feedback on another student, the student being reviewed will get that email straight away with their feedback. So no delays, there's no need for you to go and have to manually do something. So that's probably a really quick and easy way to do it. So now we need to install the autoCrat add-on. So we'll come up to add-ons. Now I've got it installed already, but if you don't, you can come down to get add-ons and you can search for the one called autoCrat, and you can see what that looks like here. So if you haven't installed it, it will prompt you just to allow it to run and stuff like that. So follow the prompts, accept everything, and then when it's ready and it's installed, you can come back to this menu. So we'll select autoCrat and we'll click launch. So it does often take just a moment to load, so just be patient there and it will load on up. Okay, so you can see there I've got no job set up. Now they call it a merge job because basically it's merging data from the Google form with the information in the Google Doc template to produce something. Okay, so very straightforward, new job to begin. Now it wants you to give it a name, so I'm going to call mine peer feedback merge. You can call it whatever you like. Just make sure it's something that you can remember for later on if you've got to identify it. Okay, it's easily identified. Okay, so we'll click next. The next thing is it wants us to choose the template. So you can see here I've recently used some other templates, but not the one that I want to use. So we'll actually come in and say choose a template from Drive. And this template is the one we created earlier, which is sitting up the top, which is where we want our questions to go. So you can see here peer feedback template. So I'm going to click that and click select. Okay, so it again will just take a moment to load and it will pop on in. There you go, peer feedback template. So click next. Now at this point you need to map the data to the template. So you need to map these column headings to these merge fields that we put in the template. And you can see here sometimes it takes a bit of a guess if they're really similar. Now mine are quite different. So first of all, name. So that is the name of the student that is actually being reviewed. So that was whose work are you giving feedback on. Okay, reviewer. That was the column that says, what is your name? So you just got to go through and match these up, and you can see here what are the best things about their work, improvements, what are 2 suggestions you have for improvement, and corrections was the spelling and grammar errors. So that's fine, they're all mapped up, so we just click next. Now at this point, it wants you to actually pop in what you want each of the documents it produces to be called. So for instance, we've currently got the document called peer feedback template. We obviously don't want that for the students, so we might just call something like peer feedback, and we actually can use those little merge tags in here as well. So I could put peer feedback dash, and then I can, I'm copying and pasting, pop in whose work are you giving feedback on, okay, which will be the name of the student that the feedback is for. Now this is really important. These ones here have to exactly match these ones in the spreadsheet. So even down to the question mark and stuff like that, and you do need those little double-ended arrows on either side, okay? So just make sure, you might like to copy and paste them. So what I did earlier is I copy and pasted them into a Google Doc, so then I could just quickly copy and paste them over and I know that I had no errors. You can set it as a Google Doc if you want to, the output, or you can select it as a PDF. So whatever is most appropriate for your situation, you can pick. Now you also can create multiple documents. So this is one document per student, and that's what we're going to do in this situation because we want each student only to get their own document. But for instance, if you were doing this just for the purpose of you and you perhaps didn't want to distribute it to the students, you could pop them in a single document and then you would just have them all in the one place. So whatever works for your situation, you can choose from here. So clicking next again, now we have to choose a folder where all of these documents are going to be stored once they're created. So the choose folder button, now I've prepared one earlier. It's going to be a folder in Google Drive. So I created one called Peer Feedback Merge Docs. Okay, and click select. So just do make sure you've created a folder before you actually go through this process. So next again, dynamic folder reference. This allows you, if you want to actually store each document in a different folder based on a criteria. Okay, so maybe a different folder for each student or something like that. This case, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to skip it. Now, a merge condition, again, this lets you do a specific action based on a condition. So it might be that you only want to create the documents or merge the fields for forms that were submitted after a certain date, or if a particular student or a particular class. So you can do that if you want to. Again, don't need to do it here, so I'm going to click next. Okay, so then we get to what do we want to do with these documents once they've been created. So we want to share it, yes. And we can choose, because we've chosen a Google Doc, we can choose to share it as an editable doc, a view only, comment, etc. And we can even change it to PDF again here. So I'm just going to go to a view only doc. Now, allow collaborators to reshare. So this is if you were sharing as the editable doc, this would be relevant, because if someone has edit access to a Google Doc, they are allowed to reshare it. In this case, it's actually not relevant. So I can put it on no, but I'm going to leave it as yes because it's not relevant. So the next option is sending from a generic no reply address. So for some reason you don't want to have your own email address as the sender on the emails, you can do this. So perhaps if you were using a personal Gmail account because you didn't have a school-based account, that would be okay. In this case, I don't need to, so I'm going to leave it as no, and it's just going to come from my email address. So then we come down to what we actually want to pop in the email that's going to be sent to the student that's been reviewed. So first of all, we need to pop in their email address. So obviously the email address is going to be different for each student, but that's why we asked the email address in the form. So I have going to pop in the merge field that had the email address, which was what is their email address. So again, it has to exactly match the column heading up here. Okay, so if I wanted to, I could CC it to someone or something like that. You don't need to CC it to yourself because it will appear in your sent mail, and I'll show you that shortly. So then we pop the subject. So we might just say your peer feedback. And what we could even do here is say from, and then we could pop the name of the student that did the review. So again, we can pop in that merge field here. And then we can type in the message. So I've prepared one earlier, which I'm just going to paste in for you. So you'll see here it's hi and the name of the person that was getting the feedback. Okay, here is your P feedback from the name of the person that did the review it, etc. And then that document will be attached at the bottom. So now that we've set that up, we can click next. Now this is the one I really want to show you. So job triggers. Okay, so what we could do if we wanted to, we could just get all the feedback and then we could look through, check there's nothing, silly in there, and then we could run the merge manually and it would produce all the documents and send the emails at the same time. Or, as I mentioned earlier, we can do it so that when the reviewer submits the form, it creates the document automatically and emails the student straight away. So you'll obviously know what situation is better for yourself. If you want to do it manually, you would leave this all till no. I'm going to show you how to run on the form trigger, and so we can just see how that works. But then also I'll just point out where you would run it manually if you want to. So I'm going to say yes to run on form trigger. It prompts you to enable them. We can just click yes. Okay, so once that's processed, now we are done. We can click save. So once it's saved, we'll get another screen that's going to pop up. Right, so you can see here it's listed as an existing job, and there's the name of it. If I hover over it, okay, a couple of things. I can delete it. I can come here and preview what it's going to look like. I can edit it if I want to make changes, and I can run it. Now in this case, because I've set it up to run when the form is submitted, I don't have to run it, okay? It will run automatically. But as I said before, if you want to let everyone submit the feedback and then run it manually, that's when you'd wait till you've got all the responses, come in here and click the run button or like the play button, and it would run the process. Okay, so seeing we're done here, I'm going to close it, and I'm now going to just leave this as it is, jump back to my form, pop it into preview mode, and I'm going to fill it out. So what is your name? So I'll write Sam, and I'm going to give feedback on Brainy Smurth, and I've got their email address here, and I've also pre-prepared some responses to the question. So Once they're in, we'll submit the form and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's done. We'll click submit. See there? Thanks for giving feedback. So if I jump back to the spreadsheet, you'll see the responses in there. Now, in just a very short period of time, we're going to notice at the end here that it's going to pop up some extra columns, which is going to be autoCrat running the merge and telling us that it's done. So you can see straight away here the extra column headers have popped up, and it's now running in the background because we had it to run automatically. So first of all, you'll see here, document successfully merged, email sent to, okay, that address. And if I actually want to, I can click this link and it will take me straight to the document that was created, okay? So, but seeing I put it in a folder, I'm going to show you where it is. So if I go now to peer feedback demonstration folder, and I've got my peer feedback merge docs, and you'll see peer feedback dash Brainy Smurf. So if I open that up, we'll see now, Brainy Smurf, here's your feedback from Sam, and all the information that I wrote in that form has been pasted in. Now, I always like to do a test of this just to check the spacing and such, and straight away I've gone, right, I've got too much spacing between these questions, so I could go back and fix that on my template, and once I've made a change on my template, any future mergers will use the new template. So last thing just to show you before we wrap up is back in Gmail, in my sent mail, I want to just show you how that looks. And you can see there, if I refresh, we've got to Brainy, your peer feedback from Sam. So this is sent to the student. You can see up there, sent to the address that I popped in, and there is the email that they will see with the attached document. So nice and easy. So I hope you find that useful. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully you can use autoCrat, Google Docs, Google Forms, and go ahead and implement some peer feedback in your classroom. So thanks again for watching. Bye.